Hello, I'm Nicole Karkic. This is Weather Network News. We begin in the Prairies, where severe weather is thrashing parts of Saskatchewan this evening. A tornado warning was issued for the south central part of the province as strong rotation was detected on a thunderstorm near the town of Chaplin. Heavy rain and hail has also been reported across the area, and residents are being reminded to monitor weather conditions and seek shelter if necessary. The potential for severe storms could continue throughout the night. Saskatchewan has been no stranger to severe weather this week. Intense storms have prompted a number of tornado warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings. On Tuesday, 48 tornado warnings were issued across the province, and at least 5 tornadoes were spotted across Saskatchewan and Alberta. There were no reports of injuries, but RCMP officials say that the storms damaged homes, barns, and vehicles. Earlier today, severe storms also pushed through parts of Alberta. Severe thunderstorm watches and warnings were issued for a number of places, including the city of Calgary, where hail and heavy rain were reported. But that didn't deter people from kicking off the 100th Calgary Stampede. The huge outdoor festival started today, and while the weather today might not have been ideal, the rest of the weekend looks to be sunny and warm. Nonetheless, Stampede officials say attendees should prepare for anything. Now, further east, heat and humidity have been the story for most of the week. After a day of intense heat on Tuesday, residents in southern Ontario got a bit of a cool down yesterday. But today, temperatures climbed back into the mid-30s. Temperature records were broken across the region, including the city of Toronto, where it reached 36.3 degrees. That ties Wednesday for the hottest day of the year so far. The Humidex advisory was issued for areas, and it made it difficult to do just about anything. But the heat didn't deter racing fans. The Honda Indy kicked off today in Toronto with practice laps. The Weather Network's Chris May was there to see how people were coping with the heat.
Water.
Now, residents could be in for a slight cool down tomorrow after thunderstorms sweep through. Now, that's a look at Weather Network News. If you're headed to the Calgary Stampede or the Honda Indy, you want to know what the weather looks like. Coming up, we'll talk about the temperature story throughout the weekend, not only in Calgary and Toronto, but across the country.
Worldwide.
If you like summertime conditions, it's finally come for us here in British Columbia this weekend. Saturday in Vancouver, 24 degrees for the interior, even hotter and humid. And Sunday, it's a little bit more stifling for the interior with Kelowna feeling like 40. Looking towards Calgary, 26 degrees. That's for the Stampede. It looks pretty good throughout the day, but up towards Edmonton, we could be seeing some thunderstorms.
Your local.
Well, we definitely have seen active weather this week in Alberta. A look back on Thursday, it just miserable weather if you had to travel anywhere in a situation like this. Again, today we did have severe thunderstorm watches in place for the city of Calgary. That has been dropped. There were tornado warnings earlier for Saskatchewan and areas just west of Moose Jaw. Those have also been dropped, but still the risk of seeing severe weather, and it's in Saskatchewan in particular where we're most concerned for large size hail, strong winds, and maybe even tornadic activity into the evening time. Today also a risk of thunderstorms towards the east, including the city of Montreal in the overnight hours. And looking ahead to Saturday, Ontario could be seeing some severe thunderstorms, particularly in the southwest, but maybe Toronto waking up to stormy weather. What do the temperatures look like in the city of Toronto for tomorrow? Well, we'll talk about that coming up. It's Friday, July 6th. I'm Nicole Karkic with you here for the Weather Network. This is your regional forecast, so coming up, we'll talk about what the weekend looks like across the area. You might be wondering if it's going to be hot, humid, sticky, or stormy. Well, we'll talk about that coming up in a few moments. But first up, here's a story out of the United States that we can sort of relate to in the city. Last night, a lot of people, about thousands of people in the city of Toronto were without power because one of the circuits just overheated. And so Toronto Hydro said that they had thousands of people in the dark. Now, in the United States, they're used to power outages because of the weather. Here's more on that story. I'm sure Chris May was sweating buckets as well. It was hot out today. It felt closer to about 40 in the city of Toronto. The Humidex advisory is still in place for Toronto, Hamilton, towards St. Catharines, and even east towards Ottawa, too. This evening, not getting much of a break from the heat. 40 is what it's going to still feel like in the city of Toronto, up towards Barrie. A little bit cooler, feeling like 32. In the 7-day forecast, we are seeing stormy weather for Saturday, and it looks like the humidity does drop a little bit. Stay tuned for more details coming up on this weather. I'm Nicole Karkic. This is Weather Network News. People in southern Ontario and eastern Ontario have been dealing with intense heat and humidity for the past few days, and today was no different. After a slight cool down yesterday, temperatures across the region were back to the mid-30s today. Several temperature records were broken, including the city of Ottawa, where the temperature climbed to 34.4 degrees. It was even hotter in Toronto. The city hit 35.1, breaking a temperature record that dates back to the 80s. That's hot by any measure, but it was even more stifling on Wednesday. Toronto hit 36.3 degrees, making it the hottest day of the summer. An extreme heat alert remains in effect for the city of Toronto, and a number of humidex advisories are in place from Windsor to Toronto and for the Ottawa area. The story is similar in southern Quebec. A number of high heat and humidity warnings had been issued across the region today, including one for Metro Montreal. Things should cool down a little as thunderstorms push through tomorrow. Now, you always hear about how weather can impact wildfires, but in some cases, the fires can actually impact the weather. Natalie Thomas takes a closer look at what's known as fire weather. That's a look at Weather Network News. Coming up, we're going to talk about big storms rumbling through southern Saskatchewan this evening. That's all ahead. Here's what one of our viewers was looking at on Thursday in Calgary. A little bit of a hailstorm marching through the city. Today, we also saw thunderstorms in Calgary. They weren't as severe in this, but we were in a severe thunderstorm watch. No longer is Calgary in that watch, but within an hour earlier today, Calgary dropped by about 7 degrees as those storms pushed on through. The biggest concern this evening still are the thunderstorms rolling through Saskatchewan around Regina, Moose Jaw too. We did have tornado warnings in place earlier. Those have been dropped, but look at that risk for this evening. It's really widespread across the prairies. Southern Ontario overnight tonight, a chance of seeing some thunderstorms, and we'll talk about temperatures across the area coming up. It's Friday, July 6th. We've made it to the weekend, and coming up, we will talk about that weekend forecast. But today, the city of Toronto beat a new temperature record. We got up to 36.3 degrees, and many people were at the first day of the Honda Indy. Now, it's running through the weekend. Traffic is going to be horrendous. It's still going to be hot and steamy into the weekend as well. So our very own Chris May was on the ground today talking to EMS on best practices to beat the heat. Now, if you're headed to the event tomorrow afternoon, a look at the temperature story there. And as Chris May mentioned, we aren't going to be as hot and humid as today. Toronto gets up to 29 degrees, so a far cry from the 36 degrees we saw today. Feeling like 37, though. Barrie up towards there, feeling like 34. Now, there is a chance of seeing some thunderstorms overnight tonight throughout this area into your Saturday morning, and the risk is there into the afternoon as well. So we'll talk about how the timing works out, but look at the city of Toronto right here. It's been humid and smoggy throughout the day on Friday. An oppressive heat was in the afternoon, certainly, and you can see that the grass is really quite dry. It's parched. We sort of need rain to come out, and we are going to get it overnight tonight. So that's certainly a part of the story. Another part is this cold front right here, and that is what's going to help cool our temperatures down and break up the humidity a little bit. But we have to suffer through those storms in the overnight, and then towards the east, they're seeing some storms as well for Saturday afternoon. Now, it does look to be clearing out throughout the day, so it's not a washout of a weekend. You just have to deal with a few rumbles of thunder and storms, and into the Sunday afternoon, the southwest is seeing some active weather. Now, it's just that 10% chance of seeing some precipitation. Hamilton, here's your forecast here after Saturday, a long stretch of sunny weather right across the region. Now, coming up in Weather Network News, more from the Honda Indy. Chris May talked to people at the event today. That's coming up next.
This weather